Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. On this lovely Wednesday morning, how is everybody doing? I'm excited to be online this morning. And the topic of conversation is going to be about emotional links to physical pain. So if anyone is joining me this morning and maybe has some pain or discomfort and they feel like they would like to understand a little bit more about the potential emotional links that could be bringing about this pain and remanifesting it, then if you're hearing this, then if you want to type what your discomfort is in the comments, then towards the end of the session, then I can go through with you what is the likely emotional link to your physical discomfort. So good morning for people that have joined. Thank you for joining me this morning. So we're going to go through emotional links to physical pain. So I just want to start by talking about like the different patterns that show up in the body and the different, the more like often or familiar pains that we have and their potential emotional links. So this is just like really broad. This is not exact, it's not specific, it's like an overview of everyone. So like if there's a physical discomfort that you have, then as I said, you can type it in the comments and then I can go through at the end like exactly what that might be related to. But be very specific when you tell me what your pain is and where it's coming from, or perhaps it's not a pain and you have a problem. So then you can just list it in the comments and then I can, go through that with you. So, hey to everyone that's just joined. So lovely to share this space with you. So, let's just start. I mean, people may or may not know that the left-hand side of the body links to the feminine and the right-hand side of the body links to the masculine. So quite often when we have discomfort, people might realize or notice that they have pain normally on one side of the body. So for me, it tends to always show up on my right-hand side. So in my own story and in my own personal pattern, when I tend to get pain through here, people that knew me, well, when I first started like 10 years ago, or even people that might have known me before that, I used to be way more masculine. Like I was brought up more of a tomboy and flow didn't really exist. And there was much more structure in my life. And I did things like really regimented, and I communicated that way. And I went through life that way, a bit like a bulldozer, no flow. There was no beauty about it. It was very, very masculine. And I would say quite often I feel like the challenges that I have on the right-hand side still remind me that there's more that needs to be learned there, and there's more that I need to do in order to get into my flow and in my feminine much more. And so if people are discovering that they have discomfort on the right-hand side, quite often, I'm not saying that is exactly what is going on, but quite often that is the reason that you may be having discomfort on that side. Whereas on the left-hand side, it's more about, like for women, it's more about feeling. So if you're having it on the left, it's more about quite often there's a challenge with the woman being in her flow. Often the woman tends to be led by the man, and they're not quite in their power, as in the men will follow the woman. So I don't know if I'm explaining it quite right, but on the left, it's more about, so females, if there's women watching, that Dior advert, and I always use this as an example, with Charlize Theron in it, and she's like kind of glam, and that is like the feminine that I'm talking about. And when you have discomfort on the left hand side, quite often like that element of it, the flow isn't in place, and there's like this kind of like friction between being in that true feminine flow and having the masculine energy kind of honor that space. Quite often the female will be sort of undermined slightly by more dominant masculine energies, rather than staying true and staying pure in her feminine energy, despite whatever the masculine energies are doing around her. Whereas if it's on the right hand side and you're a woman, it tends to be that you're quite kind of pushy and you're just not allowing to surrender to masculine energies. I would say that is more what I'm trying to get across. So I hope that makes sense to people. So there's some more people that have joined. So if people have joined and they want to understand a bit more about their own physical discomfort, then just put a little note in the comment, and then we can go through that at the end of the video. So I've just been talking about the left and the right hand side of the body. And so let's start from the top. Like quite often if you have discomfort around your head, or if you're prone to headaches around this area, it can often mean that you tend to be in your head too much. You tend to think things and you get stuck making decisions, and you tend to go around and around, and the patterns in your life keep repeating and they keep coming up. And emotionally, it can also relate to how you process emotions, and whether you get stuck in a specific emotion or whether you bury a specific emotion. So if you have any issues around here, quite often that's what's related to. When we come down into the shoulders, this is more like having the weight of the world on your shoulders. So people with shoulder problems tend to have more of a perfectionist view. They want to get things exactly right. They want to do things exactly how that they should be done. And when the world then comes along and, you know, throws a curveball, it can often mean that there's like mounting pressure here, because it's just not happening in exactly the way that that person wants it to happen. So any sort of like tension that you get around the tops of the shoulders, that tends to be like some of the emotions that might be coming up. When we go down a bit further and you come around into sort of the between the shoulder blades, like ladies where your bra strap is just above, that tends to be more about there's a spot there which is the vertebra T4. Now if it's like right in the center of the spine, like in the middle between the shoulder blades, that you get discomfort, that is where your soul anchors into the physical body. So quite often people that have problems there have a challenge with fully being present in the human experience. And also there may have been issues around birth where there might have been quite a traumatic or quite a quick delivery, and the soul never had chance to fully embody into the three-dimensional present. And also having your soul seen. So quite often people that feel like other people aren't seeing them for who they are, and they have challenges in getting their voice out and really being heard, it tends to show up around that spot, like right in the center of the back between the shoulder blades. And then around the shoulder blades, if people are having discomfort either left and right, then that can have a challenge, masculine and feminine. A bit lower down, like sort of around like this part of the back here, is where people may have challenges with having their heart fully opened, and also allowing that the solar plexus to really like open and engage. So there's two things that could be happening emotionally for you there. So the first one, if we talk about opening the heart, so this area of the spine, I'm just going to go down a little bit, like this area of the spine here, when you have flexibility kind of opening and pushing back here, that tends to be how engaging that your heart and your heart energy is. So it's our ability to reach community and to really embrace a completely higher energy state, connected purely to soul and others and community. So it's our ability to give gifts and receive. So it might be, if you have it showing up in the back here, that quite often there might be a challenge with you. I say normally the challenge is with people receiving gifts. Quite often we're quite good at giving them. We like to be seen as generous and, you know, giving to lots and a wide range of people. But quite often when it comes to receiving, like even if it's just a compliment or if it's another gift, it can sometimes feel a bit like, well, I'm much better off at giving. Like I find that so much easier. But when it comes to other people giving to you, and it's completely out of, you know, it's not your birthday and it's not Christmas, and it's completely out of context, there can be like a strain there, and you think, oh no, I'm not used to having other people be nice to me. So that can be a pattern that often shows up there. Also, people tend to have challenges there if they like to give, but they expect something in return. So people say, oh, I gave, you know, my son this, or I gave my friend this, and they didn't even say thank you, and they didn't acknowledge me, or they, you know, I was expecting them to do this or that. So there is in effect an expectation, even if it might not be that you're expecting a specific something in return, you are still expecting an acknowledgement or praise on some sort. So quite often it's then only about giving because you want to receive something back. So that tends to show up around that area. Also, the flexibility is really about opening up in the solar plexus. So quite often on the second level, we can have issues with having confidence and bringing ourselves forwards and actually showing up in a way that's very open and present. And whereas this part of the spine is kind of forwards enough to allow this section to just be open, basically. And this is where our confidence comes from. It's where our kind of doing and going forwards and that kind of motivation comes from, and also the courage. So that really kind of sits in this area. So quite often when it's closed off like this, people tend to have a lot of fear and anxiety about really showing up in the world. And also, I say fear is probably the big thing, but the problem is quite often people don't tend to acknowledge that fear. It just kind of sits there. But if you open this part of the spine and you really just kind of sit with it, you'll soon notice when you start to collapse there, and you might feel that when that happens, then you might notice that you have an emotional challenge there. And it's not that it's wrong, it's not that it's bad, it's just that that's the way that it is. And you have to just be with that and just acknowledge that, because that's the most important thing, is to just be present with what is in your body right now. So when we go down a bit further, around the belly button area and below into the pubic bone, so that is very much, that kind of whole area is a big area, and it's about where our masculine and feminine energies come from. Now, even though I'm a woman, I still have masculine and feminine energy. If you're a man, you still have masculine and feminine energy, and there will be a unique blend that is unique to each and every one of us. So it's not about being, if you're a man, it's not about being masculine all the time. Like, there's a unique blend that you have. So there might be this much masculine and this much feminine. And then for a different guy, it might be this much masculine and this much feminine. And for a woman, I might have more masculine naturally and less feminine. And then for another woman, it might be more do you know what I mean? So it's not like you have to be 100% masculine or 100% feminine. There'll be a blend that's unique to you, and it's about figuring out what that is for you. So around this area, sort of around the pubic bone and kind of around the very bottom part of your low back, that's obviously where that energy comes from. And also it's where our sense of self comes from. So it's where you're going to find your soul purpose, who you are, your identity, your sense of self. And again, the masculine and feminine energy and that unique blend that each of us have. And that all comes from that part of the body. So when we have low back pain, whether it's on the left or the right, or whether it's around the abdomen, quite often it's about the sense of self, match it, and so we have the sense of self, and then we have the ego, and quite often it's about how well matched they are, and whether you bring that exact blend forwards to the universe together, or whether your sense of self and your ego are two completely different things. So what you feel inside versus what you put to the world is further apart, or whether it's closer together. If it's further apart, we tend to have pain and tension. If it's closer together, there tends to be more ease and flow. So the ego is who you would prefer the world to see, how you go about being you, and how you show up, whereas your sense of self is what's really there underneath everything, underneath the rules that we live by and the way that we need to portray ourselves, maybe to certain different people. So the low back is really complex. Like, it can be about it can be about the sense of self matched with the ego. It can also be about whether you know your true identity, whether you know your purpose, whether you know your sense of self, and how effective and efficient you are at connecting with that, and whether or not there's a mismatch there or not. Often around the front area, it can be very like around the abdomen area. There can be a lot around, I don't want to say letting go, because that's not the right terminology, and I hate that terminology. I want to say like being present with. So letting go suggests that there's, and I often hear this term when talked about the tummy area and the abdomen, and it's not about letting anything go. Like, we have to acknowledge who we are and what we're about. It's about, if you didn't have a certain pattern in your body, what would you like to replace it with? Like, what would be better to show up in its place? So I want you to think about, like, when you're thinking about your lower back and tuning into your sense of self, it's not all about letting any part of you go. Like, they're always going to be parts of you, whether you like it or not. They're there. You have a history, and that's always going to be in your memory at some point. It's just what parts of you would like to express more fully, and if there are parts of you that you haven't even realized yet, then it's about bringing those to the foreground, so that there's no letting go happening. It's just a pure replacement. So you're acknowledging how amazing the version of you that's brought you this far is, and you're saying, hey, that's great, but you're not going to be so useful for me going forwards into my future, so I'm going to create this amazing new me, or whatever the attributes are that you really want to bring. And it's about putting your focus there so you can bring that forwards into the future. So no letting go. We're just going to take everything with us, because that's so much more effective. And it's honoring to the parts of us that we used to have in the past that maybe don't serve us anymore. So the low back is quite big. Then we get further down into the hips. Now that could be in the groin area, or it could be on the outside. So it could be either. So if you're feeling pain in the groin, or you feel it like on the outside of your leg, then, and it could even be like extended into the sit bones, like that kind of far down. So we're going off the spine now, we're going down into the hips. Like hip pains, they also tend to be like a manifestation of our physical, like a physical manifestation of our like feminine and masculine energy, but also so let me just give you an example from me. So I tend to get like restriction in my right hip. There's no pain, it's just my right hip when I do yoga or stretches or exercise, it doesn't have as much range as I have on the left hand side. So you might notice that when you do some stretching, you might feel like there's no pain as such, but there's just a restriction in the amount of movement. So this, and even if it's a restriction, it doesn't have to be a pain for you to have an emotional link or an emotional attachment. So like on this right hand side, and for me, I think hip pains are quite a lot about yes, what I've just mentioned, but on another level, like what we pick up from our parents or our heritage before that, so our grandparents, so that our lineage that really comes through, and like the pattern and the story. I don't like stories either, but at the moment, the story that I have in my mind is about the men in my life. So my dad and my husband. So and that kind of feeling, and it's about, so like if it's like for me, that's kind of generally what it is, whereas on the left it tends to be more about the mom or the grandma or the women in that person's life. So and it's just feeling into like what, you know, which side, and potentially like which person in the lineage we're talking about. So and again, it's not specific, like it doesn't have to, that's not exact, it's not like there's nothing else that can have a variant, but that's a very general rule. So on the right hand side, and it's just kind of feeling into potentially the traumas or the patterns that kind of go through that lineage, and then they tend to manifest in the actual hip joint. So it shows up as restricted range of motion, and people tend to get like a trochanteric bursitis. I don't know if people have had that or have heard of that, but it shows up there as well. So the hips very much tend to be about our under lineage. So they're like, I always think hips are super important. So, and they're super, there's something to seriously be acknowledged and thought about and thought through. So then we go down the legs and we go into the knees. Now, knees are about emotions and about our ability to move forwards. Quite often people have knee pain. They have so many emotions that it's just impossible to process all the emotions in one go, because there's just so much that they have kind of stored way down in the body, and it tends to show up in the knees. Now, the second like link to that is that when you have lots of emotions in your knees, we tend to then not be able to move forwards because there's so much unresolved stuff in our past. There's almost like not enough space in the system to really get to the next level and push through. So knees are about taking that next step, but also liberating enough energy to be able to take that next step. So we tend to sort of be lingering if we have knee pain. So like for people that maybe know, just before we did a practice hike when I injured my knee, before we did the America hike, and I injured my right knee. And there was a lot going on with the men in my life at that time. And also me having lots of emotional concerns about walking across America, because that's like was mind blowing to me at the time. And we did the practice hike, which was Adrian's Wall in the UK. And literally the second day I injured my knee. And I was, oh my God. And all the feelings about not being good enough and all those emotions that I had about doing this massive task, they all came like flooding up in that moment. And I remember I was crying to John. I was, oh my God, just go and find another wife. Like, this one's broken. She's useless. She can't do it. And so we laugh about that now. But that's how I was feeling at the time. And it was just, all of the emotions just suddenly came up in that moment. And it was so important to feel those emotions, because that was a massive part in my journey in undertaking this task that was just completely like blowing my mind. So that's just one example of like an emotional overwhelm, and tend to be like big emotions that people hold in their knees about traumas in their life, or things that they feel like they can't have because they're not worthy or they're not good enough. All those things always show up in the knees. So yeah, anyway, after a few months of hiking the trail, I started to feel like I could do it. And of course, my knee pain started to resolve. But anyway, so then we go down a bit further and we get into the ankles. So ankles tend to be about support and our foundations, and whether we feel like we have an element of safety and not just safety, but stability underneath us. So ankles tend to be like the weakest joint in the body on a physical level. And also ankles are related to how much we're in our mind, which might surprise you. to know, and our ability, like quite often we see things in black and white, we see things in right or wrong, and it's all those kind of ways that we view the world. They tend to manifest as maybe like sprained ankles, or we might, you know, go over on our ankle, or we might have just a restriction in the ankle, or the ankle feels like tight and not as flexible, maybe on one side compared to the other. So that tends to show up there. And also like how, like, so coming back to the foundations, like how our foundations and are set up, quite often, if we have any sort of instability or feeling that we just need to kind of grip on, we're kind of wanting to really control and clamp down, I would always be like super cautious of my ankles when I get like that, because I know that I'm prone to just doing something really stupid, like stepping off a curb and like going over on my ankle. So, you know, and I don't want to do that. So quite often when we're in that state is when we tend to do stupid things like that. So and you know, it's almost like the instability that we feel in our lives, our subconscious is kind of mimicking that exact same instability in our life, and we get something like a sprained ankle or something like that. So that tends to be ankles, and like lots of people have restrictions in the ankles, or tightness or tension, and like, you know, maybe the range of motion, so like the circular motion in the ankle isn't as free as it is on one side compared to the other. So that's always something to look. So you could just do some ankle rolls and feel if one side is not as easy than the other side. So that might give you an indication as to whether you're feeling like you have a nice, certain and safe grounding, or maybe there's work to be done in, you know, getting a new foundation, or, you know, solidifying your current foundation. So there's a few pointers. So I've kind of waffled. I mean, I'm just going to like go down the comments, and then if there's anybody that has like a specific pain that maybe I haven't mentioned, then okay, so there's one comment here, and I didn't mention much. Like, I started at the beginning, and then because I'm a woman, I'm obviously talking about being female, but I didn't really mention much about guys, and then guys being on the right hand side and guys being on the left hand side. So when guys tend to have pain on the right hand side of the body, obviously it's not about being more in the feminine. That's more for women. So if you're a guy and you tend to have pain manifesting itself on the right hand side, what tends to happen is, from my experience when I'm witnessing guys, and obviously I'm not a guy, so it's a slightly jaded view on the situation, but you can tell me if this is on the right lines. If it's on the right, guys tend to push a lot. Like, they push so hard, and you know, it's almost like they're trying to like forge the path in front of them. So, and it's like, you know, almost like you're getting this shovel, and you're like, right, I've got to really just dig and mine and mine and mine, and until I dig my way to my goal. And it's there's so much effort involved. And I think a lot of what comes and manifests itself on the right tends to be about putting so much effort in. Whereas if there was more balance in the system, there would be more focus on manifesting more and using that flow in order to bring things in that you want. So that tends to be the switch, I think, that needs to happen. Whereas if a guy has got pain and discomfort more on the left-hand side, I would say, like, for me, and I've only seen this like 2 or 3 times, because it does tend to be more on the right, because guys are like, I've just got to do this and I'm going to bulldoze my way through. If it's like more on the left hand side, it's about like stepping more into your power, like, you know, and almost creating a space so that you can be seen and be heard. Like, that is so important. And quite often when I see guys that have like tensions and discomfort on the left, they need their voice heard, and they need to really be seen and to show up. So it's not about like, and quite often on the left, guys tend to have like a lot of it's like anger, but it's that anger that's like, no, I need to be seen right now, like, see me. And the struggle often lies there in a sense that the energy is there, but for whatever reason, there's not like the universe isn't necessarily seeing them for who they are, but there's also a lot of figuring out that needs to be done. So that's what's happening on the left for guys, and then on the right for guys. So I hope that answers the question. So I have some more comments. So lovely to see so many people online this morning. So injuries, super interesting. Injuries, I always think, are as a relation of some unfelt emotion that then, when it's not been expressed and it's not been experienced, then eventually the body will manifest an injury. So let's say, for example, so that's why, you know, when we did the ankles, I'm getting you to feel your ankles, like roll your ankles. Does one feel tighter than the other? Like when I'm doing my stretches, I'm like, does my left hip still feel tighter than my right hip? Or sorry, the other way around. Like, you know, when I kind of twist my body this way, can I do it in one direction more than the other? So it's then feeling how much restriction is set up in the body, because when you know how much tension you're storing in certain parts of your body, you're going to know how much adaptability that you have. So when, you know, an injury tends to happen when you're met with a force, and then the body hasn't got the adaptability or flexibility to allow that energy to pass through you and out the other side. So in a car accident, for example, you know, it doesn't matter, let's say the car kind of hits you from behind, and how much flexibility and adaptability do you have in that moment that will allow the energy to pass through your body and not get stuck? So that's quite often what happens. And if there's not as much movement, then the system can, the tension gets stuck inside. Having said that, when we have a car accident, quite often that's also the universe's way of going, hey, you need a bit more energy, so I'm just going to give you this energy, because without that energy, you're not going to be able to get to the next level, or to get through, or to push to the other side, or to manifest what you want, or whatever it is. So at a time that well, I've only had a car accident once, but that time was like a really interesting time in my business life, and I felt like I needed a lot more energy in order to be able to juggle all the things that I was juggling, but I didn't have the energy within me. So lo and behold, I had a car accident, and it was like this really, it wasn't a specifically bad one. It was a shunt from the side, and it knocked me about, but it liberated so much energy within me. And after, you know, I did loads of SRI and I got entrained, and then as a result, I just felt so much more alive. And all of a sudden, I kind of knew it was a good thing, because I knew I knew the gifts already, but I was able to just kind of go, hey, great, I've got so much more energy. Now, that's not a reason for you to go out there and start getting into car accidents. So I would not recommend that. But the universe is great. It'll basically bring energy at the time. So quite often when we have an injury, that's what I'm trying to bring it back to, is it's normally the universe's way of saying, hey, you need more energy, so we're going to literally break or unlock the energy that you have within, so that you can then liberate it to bring something new and different to the world, if you have the tools and the resources to do that and the want to do that. Like, some people have an injury and they want to stay still and they don't want to move. But quite often people are like, hey, I just want to rebuild my body so much better than what it was before, and that's what I'm going to do. So that's injuries. I hope that's explaining that. So the stomach is about, as I said before, it's like, I don't like the word letting go. Quite often when we have stomach problems, we tend to control, and we want to control not only ourselves, but the people around us. More so the people around us, because if we control the people around us, then we feel more safe and secure within ourselves. Trust me, I know this one, because I've had constipation for years of my teen life and my early adulthood. So I know all about control. And it's so much, it's like, I just wanted to control John, I just wanted to control my mom, and like my whole uni life, because I just felt so much safer if I was making sure that everything was. and that people couldn't do anything to upset me or to hurt me or to make me feel bad or whatever it was. So when we're talking about stomach pain, stomach tensions or pains or anything going on with the intestines, it's about surrender, simply, and to just allow people to be who they are, and to like rejoice in different people's patterns, no matter how much you love and hate those patterns, and finding some kind of peace with embracing what other people can bring to the world and to your world. And when you can do that, and when you can find the flexibility, that will allow you to find and feel change within yourself. And it will open up into a whole new space of freedom and liberation, and finding a sense of yourself that you potentially would never have felt before had you not surrendered to that. So I would say, like, for stomach problems, surrender is a key word. Like, pin it up everywhere and find different ways of like allowing yourself to surrender. Like, so important. Okay, so small bones in the foot. Okay, so small bones, so there's lots of different things in the foot that you could have emotional things with. So like, let's say like it's under the sole of the foot here, like in the center, or the bone maybe is around here. So that can tend to be like, and people like as well that get plantar fasciitis, like that tends to be emotionally about how someone is walking their path, and like whether the path that they're walking is, I don't want to say right, but I can't think of another word right now, but whether it's like the right path or the wrong path. And like quite often, if you get like some tension under your foot, or like some like solidarity, no, it's like solidness in your arch, like you need to question whether you're going down the right path. Like, that's, for me, I would always be thinking, maybe this isn't the right thing for me, or maybe I should be doing something else. And like quite often, you know, it's about, okay, stop walking, stop moving, like just stay still and like take stock of what's going on, because your body literally doesn't want to keep moving, and it doesn't want to move forwards, and it doesn't want to go backwards, but it has no idea which way it wants to go. So you need to, but that's only if it's like in the sole here. Like if it's something to do with the toes, then it's different. So like feel into like which exactly the bone is. When like with a bunion, like people have bunions, so that's like where this part here sticks out. So when people have the bunions, that tends to be like it tends to be a part of the path that's not necessarily as smooth as it could be, and it's quite like what the path that you're going down tends to be a really rocky road. So it's almost like the surface is really uneven, and the body and the system finds it really difficult to like grip on. But as horrible as this sounds, it's you that makes it uneven. Like, it's not the path itself, it's the person walking the path that makes it an uneven and a rocky road. So it's about trying to find a way that it makes the path flat, like makes the path okay. And so it's not like this kind of twisty, turny, you know, things coming at you from all angles feel. It's like, I'm just, you know, I need to stop doing this and stop having this kind of like up and down rocky roller coaster, and just go, okay, I'm going to find a way to like not allow people to knock me off course, not allow all these bumps and raises in the road, and just go, okay, and just have this like chilled out, more relaxed demeanor when it comes to life. If it's the toes, like any of the toes, so like right, like even if some people have broken like these toes, you know, that also kind of links into the path that we're walking, but also like not tripping yourself up. So quite often, like kind of links into like self-sabotage, but kind of not really. But it's a, you know, you want to feel into why, like why you might be tripping yourself up, as it were. Or, you know, maybe it's an emotional thing, or maybe you have like a mental process that you feel is tripping you up, or what do I want to say? So like a mental or thought process that it's kind of making you have like getting to the wall and you can't figure out a way around it. It's that kind of sense and that kind of emotion. So it's about working through that thought process that then can, you know, allow you to go down the path so much more effortlessly. So you need to, that's what you need to identify, is that thought process. And that could be for family or relationships or work. It could be anything. So tailbone pain is a great one. I love tailbone pain. It's a great pattern in human nature. If we have like extreme tailbone pain, like if it's, and it has to be right at the tip, like, so I'm talking, like if I just point out, like it has to be right, I don't know if people can see, like right at the tip of the tailbone, like where the tail would come out. This is what I'm talking about, tailbone pain. And people with tailbone pain or problems, or if they land on their coccyx, they tend to be feeling very victimized by a certain situation, and feeling that whatever is going on in life is not what they wanted. It's difficult, it's hard, and there's like a way, it's like a massive lesson in life to kind of push through that, and to feel, even within the fact that life hasn't gone as they planned in whatever way that you're thinking, is about how you can feel and have abundance even though you might not be getting exactly what you wanted. So the tailbone pain in itself, let me tell you, it has the most energy to liberate when we feel victimized, and it has the most energy to offer. Like quite often people might notice that they might not have pain, but their tailbone might be tucked under quite a long way, and it might be feeling really maybe tense or tight in the sacrum, and like right under and around kind of the anus area. So these people tend to have a lot of frustration because things aren't going to plan, or they're not going their way, and then the universe comes along and it gives them something that they hadn't anticipated, or it's really difficult to navigate and work through. So I think tailbone pain is like, it's a great pain. It's a great pain. It's annoying, but it's a great pain, because it completely, when you can turn it around, has the most energy to liberate, and it has the most energy to bring to the system. So when I'm feeling victimized and when I feel my tailbone tuck under, I'm like, yes, okay, great, let's literally like liberate and blow this energy out into the water, because I know that as a result of that pattern, I'm going to get so much more to bring and to give to the world. And like lots of people have like energy in this pattern, if it's just tailbone or whether it's just tension in the sacrum. Like it's such a great energy, you know, builder. So, you know, at some point, you know, worship your tailbone pain like I do. It's great. Learn to love your tailbone pain, because it's really a time to like break through, to realize that you have enough, that you're worthy, that everything that's setting up in your life is exactly where it needs to be at this time, and that it might be different in the future, but right now you have enough, you are enough, you're amazing. So it's having that, you know, the connection between the two. Anyone else got any comments? So I'm just reading one, talking about emotional pain, anxiety, tension, panic attacks. So like anxiety tends to show up in where you might get headaches, or it tends to manifest itself like right at the top vertebra that I've spoken about before. You might feel it in your stomach area or in your solar plexus. if you're having panic attacks, you tend to feel it like all over your body, like your lungs are tight, like your connective tissue is just tight. Quite often it's just like the whole system, it's like somebody's wrapped a corset around every single cell in your body, and the whole thing is just kind of wound up like really tight, and you can't breathe and you can't move, and there's restriction. And anxiety, like the link to anxiety, is the C1 vertebra right at the top. So you might have seen the YouTube video where we kind of really connect here and we're kind of drawing up the connective tissue. That's how you want to check in with your anxiety. Also, I would suggest when you're feeling anxiety, you have to feel your anxiety. Like, try and express your anxiety. That is so hard for people to do because it doesn't necessarily have an expression. You could try and express it as frustration or tears, or just like, or you could just shake. Like, anxiety is just like, I'm so like when you go on stage and you're just petrified, it's that kind of feeling. So try and find a way to express your anxiety, like when you're feeling like it's not there and it's not a big thing, and you're just in that moment, choose to go in there and choose to feel it and just be with it. It still has so much energy to bring to the system, but also the gift in anxiety is your ability to trust. So when you experience and express your anxiety, it's about how you can trust more. So the energy, when you heal from that pattern, the energy fully goes into trust, and then it comes back to control and how you can surrender to the universe's plan and know that what you're experiencing right now is exactly where you need to be, because right now, where it sucks, it's still going to be completely different in the future. And it's that kind of trust that the energy will want to go into. So I would just, you've got to just sit with it. Like, the more you can sit with it now, as uncomfortable and as sucky as it is, just know that you're doing the right thing to liberate the energy in order to eventually have more trust. And you'll get it, you know, when you go in there. But just know that right now, whilst it sucks, it certainly won't be like that in the future. It's just something that you have to go through. But go through it, like, go through it. Headaches. So headaches is one of the first things that I spoke about. Headaches, exactly, is anxiety, and wanting to like control. Always comes back to the same sort of common themes. But quite often, if we have, like, let's say we have migraines, or we just have like a headache, could just be like a back headache or like a temple headache, or sometimes people just get like this shooting thing that goes up here, like a kind of a back helmet. All those things are feeling, again, it's like wanting to control. So you can't, like, the things that are going on around you, it's very difficult to manipulate or to tell people, or, you know, what not to be different or to change them, because you can't. So it has to be about being with yourself, being with your own emotions, and just allowing whatever it is to come up, despite what everyone else is doing. You just have to allow those things to come up. Ultimately, you know, the ultimate goal is that it doesn't matter what people are doing, you'll just be like, oh, I'm so cool right now. It doesn't really matter. You go off there and, you know, ruin your life, and you go off and do that, and, you know, who cares? I'm just going to sit here and just watch it all in front of me and not have to get involved. Like, quite often with people that have headaches, they want to get involved and they want to get their hands in, but you just can't. You can't help other people. They have to walk that journey for themselves. So it's about being able to take a back seat and just go, hey, you know, I'm here if you need me, but, you know, you go off there and do your thing, because I'm just going to sit here and just keep my energy, because it's absolutely wasted over there. And you can still be that support network. Like, when I came out of university, I was having like really bad, like, my kind of migraine headaches up the right side, like it would really hurt under here. And every now and again, when I go into control, I get a headache, and I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, okay, still more to learn and still more to liberate, but I just have to kind of rein myself, just completely relax, and just realize that I connect with my pelvis, I get my energy down. And I still am going to release this video, by the way, because there's an amazing technique in how to, like, get your energy back into your pelvis so that it stops the chatter up here, so that it can like reduce headaches, and it can reduce the amount of mental chatter that you have, clear your mind. It's amazing. I'm gonna have to find a time to do this video, which I will do, and I will let everybody know. But for now, just know that headaches are very much about not wanting to control other people, and also anxiety. So when I just talked about the anxiety before, you can help connect in with this little technique, and that's the one on YouTube. And I think Karen's just put a link to it. Yes, you have. So if you want to like find ways to connect your anxiety, pick this. I did 3 ways. You can pick one of them. One of them will work for each of you better. So find the one that works for you and use that one. So I don't think I have anything. Oh no, there's one more. Okay, so pain in the top of the foot, the middle of the outside edge. So like, Sue, are you talking like here on the arch? Is that where you're talking? Oh, thanks, Jane. So cute. I love that so many people are here and this is helpful. This is so cool. It's like really difficult after an entrainment to like exactly tell people or give them an insight into why pain keeps remanifesting. And it's about, you know, when you feel it, okay, there's still more to learn. You're not going backwards. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's just, okay, I haven't learned exactly all that I need to learn. I mean, people don't change like that. You don't just suddenly wake up, oh, I'm a completely different person. So it's about like the work and the journey that goes into becoming something completely different. And it takes ages, it takes years to try and work through some patterns that you've been masterful at for such a long time. Like, how many people have mastered some of these pain patterns in their body for a long time? Like, people tell me in the consultations, oh yeah, I've had this pain since I was like 15. And I'm like, yes, but you're 50. I'm like, that's a long time to have mastered that pain. And you want it to just turn around in a day? Okay, that's slightly not a great expectation. Yes, so Sue, so with the, like, if it's like the top part of the foot here, it's the same thing. It comes back to, like, you want to make sure that the path that you're going on is like the right path. Like the foot, this, like, it's almost like the foot has a break, and it's telling you, okay, just hold on a second. Let's just stop. And let's just see where I'm going with, and it doesn't have to be like a specific path. Like, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to go over here and become a gymnast. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It could be a way that you do life, and whether that way is absolutely necessary anymore. So I'm sorry it's so broad, but the top of the foot, like the whole arch of the foot here, is like such a broad topic, and it could be linked to anything. Like, but it is linked to something about whether the path that you're walking, something needs to shift. So think about how that sits with you. If anything comes to mind that you think, oh, maybe I just want to change that, or maybe I want to show up in a different way, or maybe I just want to go and do something completely different, and just see what sits for you and what manifests. So stiffness in the neck is so many things to stiffness in the neck, and they're all emotional linked. So like the neck is your emotional center. It's like the neck is like so important. It's like the connection between the brain and the body, and vice versa. And it's also how we process our emotions. So the C2, which is the second vertebra down, is like our emotional center. So it's our ability to go between different emotions: frustration, happiness, sadness, jealousy, hatred, anger, whatever the emotion is. It's how flexible are you at going between different emotions? Or do you find that you like get an emotion and then you just can't change that emotion? Like, you're angry and that's it. You're going to be angry until you like wake up the next day. And that's the kind of thing. So it tends to be when people have a stiff neck, their emotional flexibility and their emotional range is not as flexible as it could be. Also, what I would say is people that have a stiff neck, they tend to only want to feel nice emotions. Like they just want to be happy, and they just want to be joyous, and they're like, I don't have any fear, or I don't have any anger. And if I do, then it's way deep down, or I can't really experience it. And that's so much better down there. So it's about recognizing that you are frustrated, and that things and people piss you off. And that's cool. Like, everyone has that. Like, it's okay. And it's about, okay, so how can I somehow, you don't have to voice it to people or the people that annoy you, because it's your own emotions. Like, they didn't make you feel like that. You just feel like that, and that's okay. That's just how you do you. But it's, you know, take yourself off to one side and go, hey, I'm really pissed off right now. That person really just annoyed me right then. Or this exact example and scenarios just really peeved me off. That's okay. And just as long as you can acknowledge that and somehow express that, and if you just need to like scream into a pillow, then just scream into a pillow, or you know, just punch the wall, let that energy flow. Because we all get annoyed, we all get anxious, we all get happy, we all get sad. We all have all these emotions because it's a human experience. So I would suggest that just whatever emotion that you're going through, if it's the first thing that you do is go label the emotion. I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm happy, I'm sad. And it could be any of the emotions, but you have to get used to labeling your emotions. Like, how do I feel? And it's not how do I feel, and then, you know, you start yattering on about something. It's like, it's just one word: happy, sad, angry. And then if you are angry, like, maybe the next step is, how does that sound? Or, yay, I'm so happy. Like, how do I hold my body? Or, I'm so angry. How is that portrayed? It's not just, and this person did this, and then that made me do this, and then blah, 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 blah. Quite often when I ask how they feel, they start, you know, yabbering on about something. And I'm like, well, that's not an emotion. That's your brain taking over. Like, how do you feel? Like, what is going on in your emotions? That's why I always ask after my entrainment, how do you feel? Like, I want to know, like, what your brain is doing. Is it still do, or are you able to describe a sensation in your body? So it gives me lots of information, even though people hate that question. So I hope that helps with the neck stiffness. Anyone else got anything? Oh, that's cool, Tracy. I'm glad someone else is getting a laugh. That's good. Yes, Karen, I get that. So thank you so much. I don't think I have any more questions, but it's been like an hour, and I don't think I've done this longer YouTube video, or not a YouTube, a Facebook video. So it's been so nice to join everyone and to like help you answer your questions. And don't forget, it's general. Like, you need to feel into your own body and like whether that resonates with you, and just use what I've said and the ideas that I've pointed like as a pointer in the direction that you need to look at in your life, to kind of think, hey, okay, it's over there, or I need to pay more attention to this, and see if that fits well with you. Does that resonate with you, or do you think, nah, it's probably not that, and then think about something else? Like, quite often when you feel into pain and you really be present with your pain, your mind will just flow to the area that needs attention. And it's about witnessing that first thought, and you just think, hey, so like, if you're feeling into pain and the person pops into your head, there's probably something in that. So like, pay attention to what your body is trying to tell you, because your body knows. Your body knows much better than anybody can tell you, than even I can start yabbering on about different emotional patterns. You know your body better than anything else, and like, feel into what fits right and what resonates with you. There are so many patterns, and you know, there's so many gifts to all the patterns. So it's about trying to move forwards in the most productive and the most proactive way, so you can have and liberate the most energy. That's always the goal. So have a lovely day, and I will see everyone super soon. Bye.